I think a lot of it is confounded too from maybe perhaps the immigrant Asian American perspective, because there's also just this uh, there's a massive disconnect that happens when you immigrate. I was 4 when I immigrated from Korea with my parents, and to be conscious of a life where I was deeply connected to my folks, where I could communicate to them, to then be thrust into a reality that slowly served to separate us more and more, where my language had fallen to the wayside, so I couldn't speak with them about things that I was going through. I had to grow up pretty quickly. I was calling the cable services and electric services from a young age because I needed to facilitate language for them. Or even as simple as, like, immigrant experiences, like you were kind of tasked to give up more of your body than your mind in some ways. And so my parents had to give up their bodies, meaning like they had to go to work 20, like just ridiculous hours. So I never even really saw my folks like that often. We were latchkey kids, my brother and I, and that's a common story, I think, for a lot of kids of that generation and beyond. And so what I'm unpacking now in my adulthood is just the feelings of abandonment that I felt that necessarily weren't tied to a physical abandonment. Like, my parents were there, but
Right.
we were just so disconnected by culture that I had lost access to them. And so when I was viewing my dad and viewing that generation, I was viewing it from a place of like, this is what my father is. And the truth is that's not what my father is. This is what my father is. He is who my father is. And it took me a while to understand that concept for myself, because I had to deconstruct perhaps the pressure of feeling like I needed to represent all Korean Korean fathers, which that's
No.
not a thing. You shouldn't put that weight on. And then also, like, capturing mannerisms and capturing, and then also dealing with the fact that perhaps you don't even know your father because you've been busy, because you've been, one, like cut off from being really able to communicate with him, and then two, you're dealing in this weird abandonment trauma amongst your peers that maybe relate to you, but you're concocting this image of a father or an image of a mother through your tales together, but like never really like deep dives into their humanity per se, on like a general term. Like, I'm sure there's kids that have wonderful families that were able to traverse those things, but my family is very blue collar. We come from, just, my parents ran a store. They just had a store, and so in feeling those ways, I had to really eliminate a lot of my own conception of my parents.
우리 여기 있다간 망할 거야. 애들을 위해서라도 한 번 더 생각해 볼 수 있잖아.
애들도 한 번쯤 아빠가 뭔가 해내는 거 봐야 될 거 아니야.
비켜라 이놈아.
할머니는 진짜 할머니 같지 않아요.
할머니 같은 게 뭔데?
쿠키도 만들고 나쁜 안 하고 남자 팬티도 안 입고.
We need to find water somewhere. If that soil ain't wet, you're gonna lose a crop.
결혼하면서 했던 말 기억나? 미국에 가서 서로를 구해주자고 했던 거.
기억해.
And what was really cool about the discussions that we had was Isaac wrote this beautiful sequence at the end of a voiceover originally. I hope I can share this. I think he's okay with it. But like this voiceover sequence where he kind of captured the feeling of what our generation wants to say to our parents.
Oh, nice.
And oh my God, like even thinking about it makes me kind of weepy, but like I read it and I was bawling in the car, and I was just like, this is it. I want to tell this. I want to tell this about my parents. Like, this is what I want to do. And then we got closer and closer to the day that we were starting. And then Isaac did it ahead of time, but we had kind of been talking about it. And when he finally pulled the trigger on it, I was so happy to hear that he did it, which is he cut it.
Huh.
He cut that sequence. And it's because we don't even want to justify their existence through their suffering. They get to exist, period. And their existence is valid, period. They don't need to suffer. They don't need to be given toils and troubles and tribulations in trials in order to justify their existence here. And I think that's a lot of the narrative that, as true as it is, and it's not something to be ignored, it's to say that what we really wanted to capture in this film was the deep humanity of the inside look of what these people are experiencing and trying to do, and what they're striving for in this life. And yes, do they suffer? Absolutely. But do we need that to exist in order for them to exist? No. And when we threw that away, I was then able to really understand my dad for his ambitions and his desires and his will to keep pushing, as opposed to this second generation, in some ways, hidden shame that, please let my parents be here because look how much they suffered. It's like, which is like carrying your mom through a party that they're not comfortable in, and you feel good that you're carrying your mom through the party, but then you're apologizing for them being here constantly, being like, they suffered, like, please let my mom be here. And
Right.
that's its own infantilization. And I think we all wanted to capture their true intentions and their viewpoint, and like why they came here and what they were looking for, and all those things. And we felt like those, the images of how we classically depict immigrants were there in service to kind of cloud their natural humanity. Like, they're making choices in their life.